Welcome to the Watching Books podcast, the podcast where we discuss books that have only been adapted to both stage and screen. I'm Victoria.
I'm Laura.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I know we're both tired. You've had a lot going on.
Yes. Yeah, a whole lot. But you have too.
It is weird. Yeah. We both had separate, but a lot.
Yes.
So, this is our second attempt at recording this episode. Unfortunately, we have had a lot of technical difficulties with this episode. It was supposed to be out a while ago, and we couldn't figure out our bugs. So, we are trying again and re-recording this episode.
Yes, and we're doing it in a different way. And so we actually can't see each other. And so that's kind of strange. I have feed off of reactions and seeing Victoria. So it's going to be really different, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's better than the last one.
Yeah, I really hope so. In order to just try to dive right into it, I first of all just want to let everyone know that they can find us on social media. We are on Instagram at watching_books, and you can also find our individual profiles. Mom is at lauradawson.author, and I am at vdspringer.author. We're also on YouTube, and you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yes, and we thank everyone for your comments and likes and subscribers, and we would love to see more likes and more subscribers. So please, if you enjoy what we are putting out there, please like and subscribe. We would appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. I am wearing a lovely little pink shirt, like a pink blouse that has these little, oh, I don't even know what you call it. It's like got these little lacy pink flowers on the sleeves. It's very Glinda. And I know you're wearing a nice green sweater.
I am indeed. So I guess we're representing.
We are. We're repping the ladies. Do you know what I'm drinking? My hint is that this is a Christmas market mug that I'm drinking out of.
Glühwein.
I am. I'm drinking Glühwein that I made myself.
Very nice. How did it turn out?
It's really good. I was impressed with myself, or at least the recipe that I followed, because it tastes exactly like what we got in France at the Christmas markets.
Good. I enjoy making Kinder Punch. That's good too.
Yes, it is very good.
Are you reading anything?
Nothing except what I need for the podcast. Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. Nothing. But the one that I'm reading for the podcast is our
Aw.
next one, and I'm so excited. So what about you?
So I finished that one for the podcast, and I am reading 2 other books. So I'm finally reading my October birthday book, which is Walking the Bible, and it is about the first 5 books of the Bible, which is the Pentateuch. And it's by Bruce Feiler, and it's really good. I'm enjoying it. I'm about halfway done. I think it could have been a little more thrilling, but okay, it is what it is. But then I've also started my November book, and I am really enjoying it so far. It's Maggie Smith, a biography, and it's by Michael Cavini. And I haven't gotten very far yet, but it includes Harry Potter stuff, and Downton Abbey, so it includes the newest things, and so that's really good. I'm excited to get into that.
Oh, I love Dame Maggie. Are you watching anything currently?
I did start. Oh, what was it called? It was about that Warren Jeffs. It's on Peacock.
Oh, no.
And it's a documentary, but it's about one of his wives who was his scribe and who traveled with him and was arrested with him. It's interviews with her.
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking about.
It is really interesting. I have one more episode, I think, of that. And tonight I started watching, and this will tell you when today is. Tonight I started watching Christmas at Rockefeller Center. And normally I really like it, but the music this year just wasn't very good at all. So I quit. Kristen Chenoweth sang. She sang so low, almost like she was singing an alto, and it just wasn't her glorious, wonderful music like I'm used to hearing. Was she trying to save her voice because she's still in Queen of Versailles? I don't know. It was, but I thought, oh, well, that was kind of disappointing.
I'm sorry to hear that. That is not a tradition that I've picked up, watching Christmas at Rockefeller Center. I don't usually watch that, but I'm sorry it was a disappointment this year.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything.
Well, you just finished, you watched it. I did not. I watched the highlights, but you finished watching this season's Dancing with the Stars.
I did. Oh, it was so good, and I was so happy, and just in case people have been watching it, but maybe haven't seen the finale or maybe they haven't seen who won, I will not give anything away, but I was thrilled with who won.
Well deserved.
I think so.
Well, I'm watching something.
Okay, what is it?
Well, obviously, Ray and I are watching season 5 of Stranger Things that, just came out on
Oh,
Netflix. The first 4 episodes were released, and we have to wait until like, New Year's Eve for the last episodes. I can't remember exactly when the breakdown is that all the episodes will be released. I don't know if they'll release more at an earlier date, and then the finale will be on Christmas Eve, or if it's all on Christmas Eve. I don't, or not Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. I don't remember, but I just know we have to wait. But the first 4
wow.
episodes were so good. The only thing I'm annoyed by is the fact that this show has taken 10 years to get through 5 seasons. And so all the kids that started out as children are now full-grown adults. Like, Millie Bobby Brown went from being 12 years old to being fully grown, married with a
Married.
baby. And now she's still playing a teenager.
I did not realize that show had been on for 10 years. What?
Yeah, it's crazy. This does not spoil plot points of the show, but I will reveal a character that doesn't show up till season 3 in order to talk about this next point. But this happens in the very beginning of the first episode of season 5. And as I was watching this, I pulled out my phone to take notes immediately because it actually is relevant to our podcast. And I could not believe it. There is a
Okay.
character named Robin who's played by Maya Hawke, and she is basically she's a radio host at their local radio station, and she is gosh, it's hard to explain when you're trying to explain it to someone who doesn't know the plot. To keep it simple, she needs to get a code out to certain people through her radio show. But other people who may be listening don't need to know what she's talking about. So she uses a very specific code, and she happens to use Diana Ross's song. I think it's Inside Out. I don't know what the name of the song is, but it's Inside Out, boy you
Oh,
found me. All right, I don't know all the lyrics. Upside down. Oh, that's what it is.
okay.
It's upside down. Duh. It's upside down because they're talking about the
Upside
upside
down.
down. So it's a Diana Ross song, and Robin is using the movie The Wiz, like she's using trivia about that movie as code language so that they know the information they need to plan a mission. And so she's using facts about Diana Ross, her history, the movie The Wiz. She talks about Michael Jackson and how she thinks The Wiz gets a bad rap because personally she liked it. And I'm
Oh,
listening to this freaking out, and I was like, "Ray, oh my gosh, I have to talk about this on the podcast."
that is so funny.
I know, I couldn't believe it because no one ever talks about The Wiz.
Wow, that's great. I love it.
Yeah, I thought that was
Um,
very fun. So they're continuing their trend of using great music.
I
Are we ready to talk about the book that we're continuing to watch this week?
I'm very ready.
Mom, what book are we watching?
We are concluding Wicked. So we are leaving the world of Oz after this episode. Who knows if we'll ever be back? But we will conclude with Wicked Part 2.
For anyone who isn't familiar with Wicked, the Broadway show, the movie, or the book, you may want to go back and listen to our last episode just to get caught up on what we're talking about. If you're not familiar with the Wizard of Oz in general and the land of Oz and where it came from, go back to our first episode from the World of Oz, where we actually talk about L. Frank Baum's original book, The Wizard of Oz, because we covered The Wizard of Oz, The Wiz, and now Wicked in both part 1 and part 2. So, yeah, like mom said, this concludes our journey through Oz. We've also shared that we are aware there are other explorations of Oz, you could say. Like there was that mini series sci-fi Tin Man with Zoe Deschanel, and there's Return to Oz, which is supposed to be the sequel. There's what's that James Franco movie? Oz the Great and Powerful. There's Dorothy and the Witches of Oz. There are
Yes.
so many. There's the Muppet Wizards of Oz. So we just wanna make it clear that we are aware those exist, but we are not covering those on this podcast right now. We're specifically covering Wicked and The Wiz because both of those were also on stage and screen.
Yes. And we have both seen For Good, and I saw it a couple of days before it came out in theaters, and then Victoria saw it the next day, so I think we're ready to discuss it.
Absolutely. And it surprises me how many people are not aware that Wicked Part 1 wasn't the whole story and are surprised that a part 2 was released. So if you are one of those people, again, you may want to see the movie before you listen to this episode. So with that, I will say this is your spoiler alert. There are no holds barred because now that we're on our final episode of Oz, everything is up for grabs. We are spoiling everything, including the rest of Wicked, both the book, the theatrical version, and the film. Wicked Part 2 for good. So, with that, be warned, if you proceed, there are all spoilers for everything.
Yes. So I saw Wicked for Good, and it was very exciting. We went to it's called Phoenix Theaters, and it was another theater at the mall, but Phoenix took it over. So this was our first time going there, and I had bought the tickets online. And when we get there, they said, "Oh, your movie's in 3D." I said, "What?" Had no idea we had bought 3D tickets. So we get our glasses, and I told my husband, I said, "I'm sorry, I had no idea, but I'm kind of excited to see what on earth this is going to be like in 3D." There's a new technology, I guess, and a new way to film or something, or maybe it's the theater itself. I'm not sure, but it was called Dolby Atmos. And we were viewing this movie in 3D and in
Hmm,
Dolby Atmos. And it showed a row of
fancy.
dots on the screen, and then the dots would light up as the sound moved around the theater, and so it was like the sound it would come up to your right, go behind your head, and go out the left side, and but not only that, our seats vibrated as well when sound got closer to us. It was wild. So this was like the test.
What?
Back then they had the stereophonic music, and they had, when they filmed in color and all of that, and so it was just like, "What is going on?" We had no idea this was coming, and so it was a very cool experience to see a musical with this kind of viewing, and, so it was a lot of fun.
That is so cool. That is not the experience that we had. We went to a very small local theater, not a private theater, but not like an AMC, and we did not have that experience. Thankfully, we were the only family in the theater, and we spent half the movie chasing our 2 toddlers around. So, the only person of our family who got to sit the entire time and just watch the movie was our 12-year-old son. So, very different experience, and not quite the same as having vibrating seats, but I did have a baby throw up on me, you know. If that isn't
Oh,
an immersive experience, I don't know what is.
4D.
I will say that I wish I could experience Dolby Atmos. I'm sure I will at some point, but I want that experience, but with Lord of the Rings,
That would be amazing. Or Star Wars, Jurassic Park, anything like
right?
that. That would be absolutely amazing because it was pretty great with Wicked. It was fascinating to feel it and have the sound coming around and moving. If the sound was on the right, that's where we heard it. It was pretty neat.
A couple of things I wanted to mention before we get into fully into the second part that I've totally forgot to mention with the first part. We did talk about in part one how we got to see a cameo of Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth and how exciting that was. And for anyone who's not aware, these are the original Elphaba and Glinda on Broadway, respectively. And they have cameos in the movie. But also, Mom, at the very end of their cameos, the the man who pops up and says, "The wizard will see you now," is another cameo. That's Stephen Schwartz
Mhm.
himself who wrote the musical.
I never put that together.
I totally meant to mention it when you brought up Kristen and Idina, and it just flew right out of my head. And it's been bugging me ever since that I didn't even say that because when it happened, when I saw it in theaters, I whacked my husband on the arm and I was like, "That's Stephen Schwartz."
Wow, that's very cool.
And then another thing we never talked about, and this applies to part 2 as well. We have never addressed the fact that Wicked throws in a lot of weird vocabulary, like confusifying and splendiferous.
I like it. I think it's a lot of fun and just kind of keeps you on your toes with their fun little uses of some words, new vocab words.
Yes, they have fun uses of words where we already know the meaning, but they just change them a little bit, and it's quirky. We
Hmm.
see this on stage with Wicked, so I wasn't surprised to hear it in the movie. But it hit me that that's not in the book at all, and it's not in The Wizard of Oz either. This is totally unique to the musical, and I have no idea why, but I'm not mad.
No, I'm not mad either. I think it's cute.
It is, I agree. Okay, so can you just tell me, I know we're gonna get into it, but just tell me overall, what was your final impression of part 2? Like, how did you feel about it?
So as we were watching, when it started with Elphaba's activism and that kind of stuff. And now my husband had seen this in the West End, so he saw it on stage. And that's the only thing he has seen about Wicked. He's never read the book and he's never seen it anywhere else. And so he said when the movie was over, that was slow, and I don't feel like the movie even started until Elphaba and Fiyero went off to her lair. And I could see that part 1 was definitely better to us, and part
Mm.
2 sort of plodded along. It felt slow. At
Mhm.
least the songs I was looking forward to were good, but I definitely liked the first one better.
Okay. I'm stunned that Dad said it didn't feel like the movie started until As Long As You're Mine. I'm assuming that's what he's talking about, the
Yeah,
song, because that's a
right.
long time into the movie. I think that's over
Yep.
halfway through the movie. But I can see, yes, it felt too long. I wanna say overall, I liked it. My biggest complaint is that it was so long, but it didn't do anything to help explain the storyline any better. So, theater kids already understand this. This is for the non-theater kids who may not realize that act 2 of particularly musicals, not necessarily plays, but musicals specifically are notoriously just not as good as the first act. So, Wicked, I think it's pretty well known that Act 2 of Wicked is not as good as Act 1. Act 1 has No One Mourns the Wicked, Popular, The Wizard and I, Dancing Through Life, Defying Gravity. It's got so many amazing songs. And then you get to Act 2, and it's got Thank Goodness if you're a Thank Goodness fan, and it's got As Long As You're Mine and No Good Deed. And the rest is moving through a plot really fast to finish a story. And when you're experiencing it in the theater live on stage, it's just a wonderful experience. It's great. It moves along pretty quickly for being a 3-hour show, and you accept it for what it is by the end. I think is most people's takeaway. It's very emotional because you get the emotional feedback from the rest of the audience members and the actors. There is a shared emotional experience there that you don't get with movies, and that enhances the experience. But watching part 2 of Wicked. It's the whole second act, which is already weaker than the first act, and this movie sort of lengthened the parts that weren't as interesting and did nothing to explain the more interesting parts, like Bach and Nessa Rose's storyline. I would have loved to have seen a lot more to do with them. Or could we have gotten a little bit more of the Cowardly Lion? I think we could have stayed longer with the wizard's realization in the end when there's a big reveal with the wizard and he learns who he is to Elphaba. There are just other areas where I think we could have spent more time, and instead we spent it, like, watching the animals go to an underground yellow brick road to escape Oz. Was that really necessary?
Was a lot of that necessary, like the activism stuff, and, I mean, I realized that they were paving the road to Oz, but was all of that necessary? No, it wasn't, and 2 other things weren't
Mm.
necessary too. They added a song for the Wicked Witch, Elphaba, and they added a new song for Glinda, and neither one of them did anything to further the plot, and they were completely unnecessary.
Yeah, like I said, the first act has all the amazing songs. The second act only has a couple, and this was the opportunity to add more of those really dynamic, exciting songs like we get from Act 1, and they just they they really let me down. What did you think of There's No Place Like Home, Elphaba's new song?
I I was hoping it would be wonderful and knock my socks off, but it didn't. It was just flat, and it added nothing, and I just didn't really care for it. What did you think?
It was kind of cool getting a return of Dulcibert, her nanny for that we get to see in the beginning of Act 1 or Part 1 because Dulcibert is not really in the stage production. I don't remember her being in the stage show. Do you?
No, no.
Yeah, I don't think she is. So I liked her character because I think she represents Nanny from the book, who I talked about and who I really liked in the book. But it wasn't the kind of reunion that even really warranted a whole song and all this exposition about the animals leaving Oz.
And Ariana's song wasn't much better. The cinematography for Ariana's song was incredible. Beautifully done. I really liked it, but the song itself was eh.
I think of the 2 songs, I preferred The Girl in the Bubble, Glenda's song. I liked that one more. Ariana sang it beautifully. And I agree with you, the cinematography was
Mhm.
very interesting. I was originally saying that I really didn't like either of the songs, and I didn't see what they did for the film, but my husband actually said he liked The Girl in the Bubble because it showed character growth for Glenda and showed the change in her character to truly decide to start being good, not just pretending to be good. And since he defended it, I thought about it more, and that was effective because I do like the song more in that it actually adds to her character growth. But the song itself was still just an okay song. I loved the cinematography, and it actually reminded me a lot of Ariana Grande's music video for No Tears Left to Cry. You probably haven't seen it, but there's a lot of playing around with angles and moving the camera being upside down and things like that. It's a really neat video to watch. So anyway, I preferred The Girl in the Bubble over There's No Place Like Home, but still, I could have done without either of the songs.
Since we brought up the bubble, the movie starts, of course, I mentioned with Elphaba's activism and trying to free the animals who have been enslaved to pave the yellow brick road and all of this stuff. Well, meanwhile, we see a new Glinda. She is Glinda the Good, and Madame Morrible has set her up for great success and to be well loved by the people of Oz. And has created a way for her to travel, and it is in a bubble. And she can press a little button, and poof, a bubble pops up around her on this contraption. And then she can poke it, and the bubble pops. And it's a really cute scene what they did with her playing with this bubble. That's how we end up with the song The Girl in the Bubble and what she's singing about. We do see that instead of just being Glinda the Good in name alone, she truly ends up striving to be good, and we do see a good character arc for her.
Mhm. I agree. I heard someone, I think some reviewer talk about the difference between the 2 films, and it made them realize that Act 1 is very Elphaba focused and Act 2 is very Glinda focused. And I'm not sure if they'd ever seen the stage show, but I wouldn't say that that's
Hmm.
true of the stage version. But I definitely think that was true of the film versions, that we see a
Yeah.
lot of Elphaba in Act 1 and a
Yeah.
whole lot of Glinda in Act 2 when it comes to the 2 movies. I think we got to see some more redemption for Glinda than what we normally get from the stage production. But also, I don't think the stage production makes Glinda quite as bad as she was in the movie. There were choices made for the film that I think made Glinda worse as a character. My jaw dropped when she joined Elphaba and the Wizard in singing "Wonderful," because normally on stage, that's just a song between the wizard and Elphaba. But when Glinda comes in to sing with them and to help try to convince Elphaba to give up all of her activism and all the work she's doing for the animals to join the wizard and just take on the famous life, oh my gosh, I don't think that did Glinda any favors as a character. That made her so much worse because the problem is that Glinda knows what's important to Elphaba.
Yes, yes, I completely agree. But they do convince her on one condition that they release the monkeys. The wizard's keeping the flying monkeys in a cell above, and he thinks about it and thinks about it. And he's like, okay, well, Elphaba will be on our side. She'll give up all this stuff if I release the monkeys. Okay, I'll do it. And he gives her the key in order to release the monkeys.
Yeah, and so she lets the monkeys go. I couldn't remember what happened, so I was actually very curious to see that there was an agreement between them, because I knew she didn't join forces with the
Mhm.
wizard, so I was waiting to see what happened after that because I could not remember.
Right. And the main monkey, the first monkey that ends up getting those wings, Chichester? Is that
Chistery.
it? Chichester? Chistery! Chistery.
His name is Chistery, and I'm really annoyed because in our first episode about this, our Wicked Part 1 episode, I called him Chicory. So let me just clear the
Oh!
air that his name is Chistery, and I've seen the error of my ways.
So Chistery, you can tell that he is grateful that Elphaba has managed to get him released
Mm.
from this. And so you just kinda see a glimpse of that before the flying monkeys fly off. And so I thought that was very interesting.
So I
Yeah.
know that one of the parts you really appreciated was something that we don't get to see in the musical and that never happens in the book because, of course, Fiero and Glinda are never a couple at all in the book. So, do you want to talk about what Glinda is up to during this time?
So Glinda has let Fiero know through Madame Morrible, basically, "They're engaged! Surprise!" And he says to her, "We are?" But he says, "I'll marry you if that's what you want." So they're engaged. And so Glinda's so
Mm.
happy because they are engaged. They're gonna get married, and everyone sees them as this wonderful couple. He's captain of the guard, and she's Glinda the Good. Elphaba has been deemed wicked, the Wicked Witch, and so there's the order in Oz, if you will. There comes a time where Glinda is getting ready to be married. I have to say, it was
Mm.
one of the most stunning walks down an aisle I have ever seen on film. Jaw-dropping beautiful. I really, really appreciated it. Beautiful flowers and butterflies, and Ariana looked absolutely beautiful. That was really, really special. So she's walking down the aisle to marry Fiero.
Yes. And something that I saw afterward that I did not notice when I first watched the movie is that Glenda's wedding gown, the symmetry of her gown around the bust area actually matches the symmetry of, or I should say asymmetry, matches the asymmetry of Elphaba's glasses in the first movie. They make the same shape.
Okay.
And I did not notice that the
Mhm.
first time. But yes, I agree. It was beautiful and also really surprising to see that they were actually going through with a wedding, which never get that far in the musical. So that opening number where it's announced that they're engaged is called Thank Goodness. And it was one of the songs I was most looking forward to because I couldn't wait to hear Ariana Grande sing it because it's one of the best Glinda numbers in the stage show. And she did a great job. I thought the number was great. But then on stage, what happens is Fiyero gets really mad at the munchkins in the audience, in the crowd, who are shouting about all the rumors about Elphaba or the Wicked Witch. They're saying things like, I hear she has an extra eye that always remains awake. I hear she can shed her skin as easily as a snake. And someone says, I hear her soul is so unclean, pure water can melt her. And in the stage version, that's what really upsets Fiyero. And he runs off in anger and that's when Glinda's like, "Oh, yes, thanks, plenty, dearest. He's gone to fetch me a refreshment." And she goes into singing the end of Thank Goodness. After that, she sings I'm Not That Girl reprise. And then we go straight into As Long as You're Mine. So the stage version moves along so
On
fast, and Sfiero is suddenly with Elphaba. In the movie, it took a while, I feel like, to even get to that point.
It took a very long while, and one thing that the movie lacked is you never saw their relationship grow at all, Fiero and Elphaba. You just didn't see it. In the book, you saw their relationship grow. So in the book, Fiero is married and he has children. He'd been married since he was like 12. He's a prince. He has kids and had responsibilities, but he fell for Elphaba. And they're off living together in a shack.
Right. And she compartmentalizes him. She keeps him separate from her activist work, so he's never really aware of what she's doing. But simply because of his affiliation with her, that's what leads to him being attacked by the Gale Force and killed. And so in the book, he is ultimately killed as a result of having this affair with Elphaba.
Yes.
None of that stuff happens in the stage version except for the affair. It's an affair because he's engaged to Glenda. He's with her. He's been with her the whole time, but he is not married like in the book. We do get to see so much more of the relationship between the two of them in the book. Fiyero is such a likable character in the book and the stage show and the movie, but how their relationship evolves is very, very, very different. And it's really tragic. The Wicked Witch's story throughout the whole book of Wicked is very tragic. But in the book, what's wild is, and I cannot remember if we talked about this in our first episode of Wicked, but Elphaba has Fiero's child. And if we did mention that before, we didn't mention that it was Fiero's. So she has his child, but because after Fiero's death, she ends up in a coma for a while, I think. And when she wakes up, she doesn't have many memories of what happened. And while she's in a coma, she has the child. And I don't think she ever knew she was pregnant. This is all in the book. None of this happens in the musical, but she's very detached from the child. And I don't even think she pieces together that it's Fiero's child until near the end of the book, if I'm remembering right.
That's interesting. I felt like she knew who he was, but for some reason, there was no attachment to her because we see her staying in this nunnery or something like that, where they're taking care of her.
Monterey.
That's where she gives birth, a Monterey. And so she has this child tagging along with her everywhere she goes. It never explains who he is until you're almost at the end of the book and you realize, oh my goodness, this is Fiero's son that she gave birth to. It was the craziest thing. And I felt so sorry for this little boy because she just basically, she sounded like a horrible mother and that didn't have anything to do with him.
Mhm. Yeah, well, because if I remember right, the reason we realize who he is because she realizes who he is. It's like it's always been in the back of her mind
Mhm.
that he is Fiero's son, but she's never fully put it together or allowed herself to realize it. And so it's really not until the end that she's finally like, "Wait, I think this is my kid. And I think this is my kid that I had with Fiero." His name is Lear, and this poor little boy, he almost is killed. He almost drowned. There's so horrible, a lot of the things that happened to him. But I think it's his story that goes on to be told in later books that Maguire wrote, because he wrote Son of a Witch, and he wrote there's a story about the Cowardly Lion, I can't remember what it's called, but he has other subsequent books that succeed Wicked, which I've never read, and I probably never will. But if any of you have read the other books and have more insights for us, please feel free to leave comments and let us know what else happens in the books. So we never have that in the stage musical, and things move along a lot faster in terms of time. When the movie starts, did they ever even say how much time had passed between the ending with Defying Gravity and Elphaba flying off to now where part 2 starts? Do we know how much time has passed?
Well, having only seen this once, and now it's been a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember if they did.
I can't remember either, but it's clear that some time has passed because we've gone from Elphaba has just flown away from the Emerald City, having defied the wizard, to now we're in part 2 and the yellow brick road is almost complete and Glinda is a public figure, which she wasn't before, and Elphaba is at least a well-known activist enough to have obtained the moniker Wicked Witch that everybody calls her by. No one calls her Elphaba anymore. So enough time has gone by for that much propaganda to have been dispersed that everyone in Oz is calling her the Wicked Witch.
And not only that, but then we also see Nessa Rose as governor of Munchkinland. And Bach is
Yeah,
basically her
you're right.
servant.
Yeah, what did you think of that whole, situation?
Once again, we come into this going, "What? How did this happen? I don't understand what's going on." I don't
Mm.
know, I just felt like, I don't know, it was, if you didn't know the movie, it could be kind of confusing. "Oh my gosh, look, Nessarose governor? How did this happen?" They kind of explain it because her father had been governor, and so she kind of took over for him, and so they do kind of explain it, but
Mhm.
it's still not completely clear. But then Bach, I know that she really cared about him, and you leave the first movie going, "Okay, well, he may really care about her in return," and then we come to this movie, and he is serving her. He's her slave almost.
I will say this is where the book comes in handy because we get the time to understand what happened in all this time, whereas the musical has the first few minutes of Act 2 to explain where everyone is in life, and it's just not enough. This is why I'm frustrated that for the second movie being so long, they didn't spend more time explaining how we got to where we are.
Mhm,
That would have been really helpful,
mhm.
I think, and a good use of time. Because in the
Right.
book, what we know is that Nessa Rose is now I think she's called the Eminent Throp. Their last name is Throp, like Elphaba Throp, Nessa Rose Throp. And the Eminent Throp is like it's not a governor, but does have a lot of authority and holds a high place in the area of Munchkinland, I should say. I'm trying
Well,
to
I thought
remember.
that so when Bach when Bach tries to leave when Bach tries to leave and he goes to the train station, there's a sign up and it says that animals cannot travel anymore on the trains. And then there's this little PS almost, neither can munchkins without the approval
Mhm.
of the governor.
I know what you're saying, that the movie and I
Oh,
think the musical call her the governor of Munchkinland because we in our culture understand what governor means, but in the book, she's called the Eminent Throp, which I guess works similarly to a governor, but ultimately, overall, she has more power than any of our governors do, but we just know what governor means versus Eminent Throp, and the musical doesn't have time to explain what the Eminent Throp is.
well, this movie musical had plenty of time to explain a lot of stuff that they didn't explain.
I know. That's what's so annoying. This was the chance for the movie to explain how Nessa Rose can be viewed as the Wicked Witch of the East. And I just wasn't satisfied by her one little line in a song singing about how she's the Wicked Witch of the East. We don't get all the way there to the point where we're like, "Oh, that's how she's the Wicked Witch of the East." Because in the book, all the Munchkins are calling her the Wicked Witch of the East because of her oppressive laws and how she's been ruling them. And because she, Nessa Rose, actually enchants that axe that cuts off all the Tin Man's arms and legs and torso and everything, like we talked about, I think, in our Wizard of Oz episode. So we get the original story of the Wizard of Oz, but we see that it's actually Nessa Rose who's causing that to happen to this poor man, which is very different from the musical. In the musical, we don't get to see her wicked witch side really. And I guess this was their way of doing that, but it's unsatisfactory to me.
Very much so. The only thing that we really see is the way she treats Bach, and she's very possessive of him, forbidding him to leave. She only put that extra little law in there. Munchkins can't leave either because he would then have to
Mm.
go to her to get permission. That's when we see him being a servant to her, and she wants him to call her Nessa, and he refuses. And he's just bowing to her and serving her. And you could tell he is so incredibly unhappy, and that's really the only thing that we see that would even be considered evil in her. It's just like, where do they get it? Where do they get that she's the Wicked Witch of the East? It was just so weird and just seemed so random.
Yeah, you can tell that they are stretching to connect dots where we don't have enough of the journey to get us there fully. But they need it in order to come full circle to her and the slippers and the house and all the stuff that we get in The Wizard of Oz. But there's just not
Mhm.
enough time spent on her story for
Mhm.
that to fully make sense or to really satisfy the audience. So that's my biggest gripe. However, I will say that with the movie,
Mhm.
I loved the Tin Man scene. I loved it. What did you think?
Okay, I did enjoy seeing how he became the Tin Man. The spoiler, it's Bach we see is turned into the
Mm.
Tin Man. The one thing I didn't care for was the anger that the Tin Man had. He was so filled with anger, and that's what we do not see in The Wizard of Oz. The Tin Man is the one who is caring and understanding and has great love and compassion, and so this turned him into this mad man, and it
Mm.
sort of took away from the character of the Tin Man, who I love so much from The Wizard of Oz. I liked seeing how Bach was turned into the Tin Man, but I felt like I missed the softer, more compassionate side of the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, the original book.
I can see where you're coming from, but as a viewer and a fan, I like how they connect the Tin Man to someone that we know as a character. So if you're a fan of Wizard of Oz, you know the Tin Man and you love him, supposedly. But if you're a fan of Wicked, it's neat seeing how they use someone that we've already come to know, Bach, they use him and turn him into the Tin Man, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, we know who the Tin Man is, and we know where he's gonna go, and that he's gonna end up with Dorothy," and I don't know. As a fan, yes, thanks for giving us what we want. Does it make much sense? No, not really, but I'm not gonna complain about it. I can understand where you're coming from. We're used to the Tin Man being, ironically, big-hearted, but he's furious that he's not, and he never will be, Bach again. At least it's consistent with the stage version.
Yeah.
Bach in the stage version is the one leading the witch hunt.
He does in this too. And one thing
Mhm.
though, in L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy goes to stay with Bach, the Munchkin, not the Tin
Yes.
Man. She stays with him.
Yes.
It's in the
Mhm.
book. And so that kind of takes away
Mhm.
from that character. They kind of combine Bach and the Tin Man in this musical version.
Yeah, they definitely do. And yeah, she goes to stay with him in the original book and in Wicked, the book. In the book, what we get is Elphaba goes to visit Munchkinland because her sister has died, and she runs into Bach, her old college friend from Shiz. And they chat and she's like, "So what did you think of this little girl?" And he's like, "Oh, she's actually really sweet. I think you'd like her." And Elphaba is like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." But they're chatting like old friends because they are. And then she comes across Glinda, who of course we'll get there with Wicked, the musical and the movie. But in the book, she comes across Glinda and she's like, "So you gave my sister's shoes to this random girl whose house fell on her." And Glinda's like, "Oh, I didn't really think that through. I'm sorry. I just, I kind of felt bad for her, but you could get them back." And Elphaba just can't forgive Glinda for this and is really mad at her. But we don't get this deep old connection brought back to life between the two of them. And there's not much more interaction between the two of them. And so, where the book leaves off their friendship, the musical continues it and makes it the centerpiece of the entire story.
Right. And the book is vague about how this house lands on Nessa Rose. The movie makes it very interesting, and we see Madame Morrible. We see Glinda say, use her sister, because at this point, Glinda has figured out that
Mm.
Fiero cares for Elphaba and not for her.
What leads to Glinda in the musical, what leads to her feeling so, I don't know what the word is, vengeful toward Elphaba is what happens during Glinda's wedding. Elphaba, after she has released all the flying monkeys because the wizard agreed to her deal, he leaves to go get ready for the wedding. And so Elphaba is left alone in his quarters. And Chistery, the head flying monkey, comes back. And we have this interesting, like, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes moment where Chistery actually speaks and says, "Miss Elphaba." And then he goes over to this big round painting of the wizard and shows her that it can be moved. And she goes over to it to find that there is something behind it.
She pushes this painting away, and when she looks in, there are cages and cages of the of animals. And what
Mm.
really does it for her is she sees a cage, and it is Dr. Dillamond, and he cannot speak anymore. And
Mm.
she is furious. And then we see the wizard come to the doorway, and he says, "I can explain." And she is so mad, and she basically says, "Run." And she releases all of the animals, and they start taking off. So this is at the same moment that Glinda is walking down the aisle. And so during the wedding, Madame Morrible is going to be officiating, and Glinda has joined Fiero at the end of the aisle, and they keep hearing all this rumbling. What is that sound? And all of a sudden, all of these animals start pouring through.
Yep. And they completely trample and disrupt Glinda's wedding to Fiero, and everyone flees. Fiero has made it clear that he realizes this is Elphaba's doing, and he's off to find her.
Well, then we see back in the wizard's lair, we see Elphaba, who has pinned the wizard with her broom up to this like sphere thing. So then Glinda comes in. What are you doing? And then Fiero comes in, and Fiero's aiming his gun at Elphaba and let him go and all this stuff. She does release the wizard with the broom. And does she release him?
I can't remember if she releases him or if Fiero just has his gun on her and he's able to take the broom. One or the other. But Fiero has the broom.
Okay, Fiero has the broom, and it tells Elphaba, "Run, go," and gives her the broom. And Glinda's like, "What are you doing?" Yeah. So,
Mm.
um, Elphaba leaves.
And that's when Glinda goes back to her completely ruined wedding venue to sing "I'm Not That Girl" because she knows Fiero clearly has other
Yeah.
intentions and feelings towards Elphaba. Now she's realizing how much time she's wasted trying to make him love her. And now I'm trying to remember, like, where do we even go from there? Because that's how we get to "As Long As You're Mine" after "I'm Not That Girl." I felt sad. I think Ariana Grande's performance in this second movie was stellar. I thought it was great in the first movie. I thought it was even better in the second movie. She did an amazing job. And I think there are a lot of people who don't want to give her credit for how hard she worked at this role. But I will say, I've seen her earlier acting stuff, and she has grown so much as an actress. She is not just a pop star, and she is not just the Broadway actress that was in 13 on Broadway when she was a young teen. She has fully grown into a woman who can not only sing beautifully, but she can really take on a complicated role and act it very well. So that's just my opinion. You can disagree with me, but I think there have been a lot of naysayers who just don't want to like her as a person, who don't want to acknowledge the skill that she has and is able to show on screen.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I think she's done a great job. And I mentioned in part one, when I heard that she was going to be Glinda, all I knew her from was this little pop singer. And when I heard she was going to be Glinda, I thought, there is no way. And then I saw the first movie and she was fabulous. And
Mm.
I think she's doing a wonderful, wonderful job. So we'll see where this takes her and what she decides to do from here as far as acting and stuff goes. But she did a great job with I'm Not That Girl, and she did a great job with The Girl in the Bubble because it did show depth and how she was growing as a character. That song did help her some. It still just wasn't my favorite song. But we do see Fiyero run off. He goes with Elphaba, and they go off to
Yep.
her lair. I didn't care for the way they began the song. I love how they do it in the stage version. And so this one, she
Mm.
starts singing these beautiful lyrics and she's walking away from him. And it's just like, what? There was a disconnect there. It got better. I'm not expecting a sex scene or anything. That would be ridiculous. But just once again, it was something that didn't show how their relationship developed. I don't know. The singing of the song was wonderful. It was so good, but it wasn't staged the way that I would have preferred it for me. That's just me.
How is the stage version different that you prefer how it's staged versus the movie?
In the stage, I love how they come together and they are looking in each other's eyes and they're holding each other's arms and they're singing to one another and then they sink down and they're on their knees and they are focused on each other and not singing this song and walking away, not even paying any attention to the person. It didn't work for me. That's just me. It's my opinion.
I can totally see how you felt about it because I started having the same thought as you. You've seen the stage version twice. You saw the Broadway tour and you saw it in London
Mhm.
at the West End. I saw it with you for the Broadway tour. And the way it's staged is there is all this fog and low lights, and there's no scenery. There are no big set pieces. It's just two actors. You've got Elphaba and Fiyero on their knees downstage. For non-theater folk, that means close to the audience on the stage and with a bunch of fog around them. And so when she's singing the lyrics, "Kiss me too fiercely, hold me too tight," they are on their knees facing each other, 2 inches apart from each other, singing these words. And it just makes sense. It's staged very well and it's simple. And the song is beautiful enough that you just don't need all the other stuff. So I could totally see why you prefer the stage version. I think I do too ultimately. But I will say, when I first started watching the film version, I thought the same thing you did. She's singing "Kiss Me Too Fiercely, Hold Me Too Tight," and she's walking away from him and totally leaving him in another room. And I was like, okay, this is a choice. I don't understand where we're going with this song. But ultimately, while she's leaving the room to, I guess, take off her cloak and put on a sweater, a cardigan. He is looking at her room and what she's collected. And he's looking at all the propaganda that she has that's all about how she's the Wicked Witch and how the world sees her now. He's recognizing what she's been doing with her time, and he also sees how the rest of the world doesn't understand her the way he does. They don't know who she really is, but he does. So when they come back together in the movie, I liked that he was suddenly singing, "Maybe I'm brainless, maybe I'm wise, but you've got me seeing through different eyes." And that's a lot of foreshadowing. So, of course, maybe I'm brainless. Hello, hint, hint. What's going to happen to him later? We'll get there. When they're actually singing together, they are together physically. We get the movie magic of her flying him up. They're up in the air, spinning around, and then they land on her bed. I loved the singing. They sounded great together. The scene was beautiful as far as the lighting and the setting. I thought those were great. And I like how it all ended up coming together. So ultimately, I was a fan of how they did it, but I could see where you were coming from with the beginning. Still, at the end of the day, I prefer the stage version as well of this song.
Absolutely. So while they're doing this, Madame Morrible is mad about everything going on with Elphaba. She really wants to get her. Glinda is upset because Fiero has gone
Mm,
off and she knows that
mhm,
he is probably with Elphaba. And so she says,
mm,
use Elphaba's sister. Use her. Madame Morrible is like, that's a great idea. She magical powers can control weather. We see her casting a spell and she creates a tornado that picks up Dorothy's house and ends up dropping on Nessa Rose, the Wicked Witch of the East. And so that's how that happens. And while Elphaba is with Fiero, she's seeing this little vision. I see a flying house, and that was
mhm.
kind of funny to me. Oh, there's a flying house.
Yeah, so my prediction was correct from watching the trailer. Madame Morrible is the one who created the tornado. This
It
does not happen
was.
in the book, and
Mhm.
I don't think this happens in the stage version. I don't think she has anything to do with the weather. If I remember the stage version correctly, Elphaba's the only one who is actually magical. I don't think Madame Morrible is either on stage. Is she? Am I completely misremembering that?
I don't remember her doing magic on stage.
I don't either. So I think it's only in the film that Madame Morrible even has power at all. So the fact that not only does she have power, but she has power that is best suited for controlling weather, and then that weather creates a tornado that brings Dorothy's house. I liked that little feature. I think it does create plot holes that lead to us wondering why she
Mhm.
couldn't do more to stop Elphaba if she was that powerful. Like, why couldn't she just land the house on Elphaba if she wanted to stop her?
Oh, you should talk about how Bach is turned into the Tin Man.
Oh, yeah, I guess we didn't really cover that when it comes to the musical. Nessa Rose is the reason he becomes the Tin Man. She starts trying to use the Grimoire, which is the book of magical spells that only Elphaba can use properly, and she mispronounces a lot of the words, and in her effort to try to magically induce Bach to love her, she accidentally shrinks his heart and threatens his life. So Elphaba comes in to try to save him, and the only way she can save him is by creating him so that he no longer needs a heart. So she turns him to tin, and that's how he becomes the Tin Man. Oh, it's so sad.
It's very sad, and then when we see Bach come out and because Nessa Rose is outside and she's very nervous, Elphaba comes out and says he's gonna be okay, and then
Mhm.
we see something coming through the door, and he has an axe, and he is chopping his way through the door, and he comes out, and he is the Tin Man, and the graphics were great.
Okay, so I learned that they were great because that was mostly practical makeup. Only his joints were green screened and CGI. Everything else was practical makeup, which was really surprising because it looked really, really good in the movie.
Mhm. Yes,
So,
it did. It looked really good, but it was very sad. He runs off.
oh yeah, he runs off because he's angry with Nessa Rose But Nessa Rose says, "Oh, it was Elphaba. Elphaba turned you into this. The Wicked Witch turned you into this." So he leaves Nessa Rose. She says that in fear. So he leaves Nessa Rose to go find Elphaba because he's so angry at what he's become. And then Nessa Rose is
Yes.
squashed because she is wheeling down the yellow brick road hours later in the middle of a tornado looking for Bach still. And that's how she ends up underneath Dorothy's house.
Mhm.
But in the stage version, I think it's very similar, like, the same things
Mhm.
happen. I think this all just highlights how there's never any real appreciation or love from Nessa Rose to Elphaba that we ever see in the musical. And it's just so sad
Mm.
how she never appreciates her
No.
sister for everything she's done for her.
Yeah. I agree completely. So Bach is off looking. He gathers a crowd to go looking for the Wicked Witch. And then in the crowd, we see a grown lion, the Cowardly Lion. And he starts talking about everything that Elphaba did to him. And that one
Mm.
bothered me too because she hadn't done anything to him. He was remembering it wrong, I think, blaming her,
Okay,
and it wasn't her.
in the movie, this happened after her "There's No Place Like Home" song. The lion, at least. Everything that he says
Right. Well,
happens when
that's
he's
when we
talking to
first
the
see
other
him, but we
animals
do
at the
see him
beginning.
join.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yes, you're
yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. You're right.
But the Tin Man speaks up for him
Yeah.
during that song because he talks about the lion. He says I think he says if she had let him fight
Right.
his own battles when he was young, he wouldn't be a coward today. It's like, wow, that's a real stretch to wanting to go out and murder her.
Right. It just goes to show what one person saying something negative about another person will spread like wildfire, and it could be all wrong.
Yeah, I think that's one of the good takeaways from the musical. So we do get to see Elphaba, and not just Elphaba, but Elphaba and Glinda's reaction to the fact that Nessa Rose has been crushed by a random house from Kansas.
Yes. And Elphaba wants to go to mourn her sister. Glinda's there. When Glinda said, "Use her sister," she didn't mean kill her. That was something that Madame
Mhm.
Horrible came up with herself. But it did get
Mm,
Elphaba's attention for sure. And when we first see Glinda, we see a girl walking off in Nessa Rose's silver slippers. And so we know that that's Dorothy. And we know that Glinda
mhm.
had just given Dorothy these shoes. And she has been sent
Yeah.
off down the yellow brick road. So then, of course, Elphaba realizes, "You gave my sister's shoes away. You had no right to do that," that kinda thing.
Yeah. I do love Ariana Grande's delivery of "Goodbye, Dorothy. Goodbye, Dodo." That cracks me up when she's sending them off onto the yellow brick road. And then we get the little fight scene that you loved so much between Glinda and Elphaba.
I thought this scene was so unnecessary. Of course, we see that Glinda slaps Elphaba in the face. Elphaba says, "Do you feel better?" And then Elphaba
Ooh.
slaps Glinda right back. They end up jumping on each other. They are rolling all over the ground. I just thought it was ridiculous and unnecessary.
In defense of the movie, this happens on stage. Maybe not them rolling around fighting each other, but the fight does happen on stage. It starts with Elphaba telling Glinda that she had no right to give away those shoes. And Glinda makes a comment about how everyone's just taking things that don't belong to them, pointedly referring to the fact that Elphaba is with Fiero. And Glinda, of course, slaps Elphaba. We get the Wicked Witch cackle from Elphaba, which is so satisfying to hear in the stage version. And then Elphaba immediately slaps Glinda. And then they start sparring. Elphaba has her broom up and Glinda has her wand up, and they start fighting with their wand and broom. And that's what we get in the stage version. We see all of that happen in the film version as well. We even get Glinda mocking Elphaba's cackle, which I thought was very funny. And then Glinda throws her wand aside because, of course, she's not magic. It's all fake. She has no magic to fight with. She cannot match Elphaba's power. So she wants to fight Elphaba hand to hand and just tackles her. And I did think it was very funny. I think the only thing that takes away from this scene is the fact that they are doing all of this and it's meant for comedic effect, but it's all happening at the site where Elphaba's little sister was just murdered. And that kind of puts a sour taste in my mouth, you know?
Yeah.
So we get that silly little fight from them. And then I guess they stop for some reason. They must be interrupted. I can't remember. Something happens and the Gale Force shows up, right?
Fiero. Yeah, Fiero shows up.
Right.
Yeah. So Fiero comes and then the Gale Force comes. And they're ready to take Elphaba away.
Mm,
And he turns his gun on Glinda and says,
mm,
tells Elphaba to run. And Elphaba doesn't want to run. And Glinda was stunned that he would turn his gun on her.
mhm.
Stunned.
Yeah, she actually, and I think she knows it's a bluff because she steps forward toward him,
Yeah.
toward where he's pointing his gun at her. But I think the hurt is written all over her face. And
Yeah.
ultimately, he sacrifices himself in order to allow Glinda to get away.
Elphaba to get away.
Did I say Glinda? I meant Elphaba. Yes.
She gets away. They take him. And so then we see
Mm.
horrible images of what's going on with him. And they're beating him up, and it almost looks like they're beating him to death, and it's horrible to see. And you see him in the end, like he's almost strung up on 2 fence posts.
Yes. And let's talk about the context in which we're seeing these images. It's not like we're watching him get hauled off and beaten to death.
Yes.
It only happens in bursts because it's happening during the song No Good Deed. I don't think we mentioned when Elphaba and Fiero are post-coital before the tornado scene. They're talking about how he has 2 palaces. There's a bit of a funny moment because he says he has a palace in Kiamo Ko, which would be a really great place for Elphaba because there are a lot of tunnels and hiding places. I think I'm remembering that right. And she's like, "Do you live there?" And he says, "No."
Mhm.
She's like, "Where do you live?" He said, "I live at the other palace." She's like, "Right, of course you do."
Right. So that's a little foreshadowing right there, and, it was something to keep in mind. So,
Mhm.
she goes off and she is singing a spell, and you hear her singing, "May his bones not break," and all of this stuff, and she
Mm.
gets very frustrated because she doesn't even know if her spell is gonna save him, if it's gonna work.
Mm.
We are seeing those bursts of him being beaten to a pulp and probably to death.
This is one of my favorite songs in the whole musical. I think it's definitely my favorite song of Act 2. I know For Good
Mine
is in
too.
Act 2, but oh my gosh, No Good Deed is such a good song.
It is beautiful to see how Elphaba is mourning. She mourns Nessa Rose, Dr. Dillamond, and now Fiero, and she's just wondering, I have all of these powers and I can't save anyone. And
Mm.
it's a really sad moment. She's reflecting on everything that she's been going through and the people who she has cared about, who she has lost now.
Yeah. Do you remember how I said in our first episode of this in Wicked Part 1 that in the book Wicked by Gregory Maguire, what is so sad about Elphaba's life is that nothing she ever tries actually works, and none of her dreams are realized or come to fruition.
Mhm.
I think what's happening here in this song, No Good Deed, is this is the musical's version of reflecting that. Elphaba is realizing that it's just better to be wicked. It's
Mhm.
better to be for the whole world to see her as wicked and for her to finally just embrace it than to try to keep doing good. Because anytime she's tried to do good, it has failed. And, for being a mythical fantasy world, it's such a human moment.
It really is. Because I think we all can feel that way at times, and you want everything to be successful, but things aren't always successful. But we have to realize that being good is better than being wicked in reality. But
Mm.
it is a really good scene. So we are left kind of clueless as to what happened to Fiero at this point.
she's at some kind of fortress palace type place during this song in the movie, No Good Deed. So I don't know how she got there.
Mhm.
I don't know if they explain what this place is. I don't know if this is supposed to be Fiero's palace at Kyamoko. I don't know. All I know is that suddenly Elphaba is at a big castle-like place trying to save him from afar. What we keep seeing are cuts to him being beaten up. It's brutal and it's so sad. And you're right, by the end of the song, all we are left with is an image of Fiero hanging pretty much lifeless from these posts in a cornfield, looking very much like a scarecrow in a cornfield. We also get to see that while she's singing this song, there are flying monkeys around her. We didn't talk about the fact that the flying monkeys have now changed their loyalty. They saw that Fiero had gone against the wizard, and they knew that Elphaba was the one who had set them free. So they have taken off their Oz badges and are now with Fiero and Elphaba. So at this point, they're going to do whatever Elphaba wants because she is actually for them and they recognize that. So that was an important
Mhm.
feature, I think, that needed to be mentioned. But after this, what we get is
Yes.
Glinda coming to
Mhm.
Elphaba.
Yes. Glinda shows up. They talk. And while they're talking, Chistery comes and
Oh, yeah.
he brings a piece of fabric and gives it to Elphaba. Elphaba looks at it and she knows it's Fiero's. And she says something like, "We will never see Fiero's face again." Is that right?
Yeah, because I think
Something like
Glinda
that?
asks her, she says, "Is it Fiero?" And Elphaba says, "We will never see Fiero's face again."
Right. Yeah, something like that. This is where we get For Good, where they do sing, they bury the hatchet, they sing that their lives have been
Mm,
better because they knew each other, and it was very well done. It was beautiful. We see
mm.
Elphaba ask Glinda to please go into this little um hidey hole, and so Glinda does, and she watches as Dorothy shows up, and she's going to let them kill her and just have it all over with. And so she had a bucket of water placed there waiting. Dorothy shows up, throws the bucket of water on her, and we see her melt, and we see Glinda watching in the shadows,
Mm.
you know, through cracks, and she sees Elphaba go down.
This scene was so good because it mirrored what happens on stage. The song For Good is an
Mhm.
incredible song, and they did a great job with it in the movie. And then, yes, we get to see Elphaba take Glinda to, like, a closet or something, like you said, a hidey hole and and close her behind the door. What I've seen in interviews since is that Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande did not have dialogue for this part of the scene. They were just told to wing it. And so Cynthia Erivo is suddenly grabbing Ariana Grande and walking her toward this door, and Ariana's going, "What's going on? What are you doing?" And Cynthia's going, "It's gonna be okay. It's fine. It's gonna be okay." And she closes the door. So that emotional door scene that we get was completely improv because Ariana Grande did not know what was going on.
Hmm.
And I think that adds to the scene. It was really good. It was very well done. And on a lighter note, I've seen some very funny parodies of many people either taking old footage of Judy Garland as Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz and playing it with For Good in the
Me
background,
too!
like Dorothy hanging out while listening to The Wicked Witch and Glinda sing about their friendship for each other, like, and she's just waiting for herself to be killed, like
We're
that
good.
has cracked me up, and I also saw one of I've seen
She's
people
bawling,
parody
she's
Dorothy's
crying, and
reaction. She's just waiting to die while Glinda and Elphaba are singing about their friendship for each other. Um, but that song is so good, and they did a great job. In the stage version, what we get to see after For Good is Glinda, like in the movie, is hiding, and it's like she's basically hiding behind a curtain, and we get to see a shadow outline of Dorothy throwing water on Elphaba and Elphaba, quote unquote, melting. It's very similar to what we see in the original Wizard of Oz movie. We don't get all the dialogue of, "Oh, I'm melting, melting, ah." I don't think that that happens,
Mm-mm.
but we understand that Elphaba has melted. In the book, Glinda is not there at all. Dorothy grabs a bucket of rainwater that's been collected
No.
because they're on a rooftop where this happens. She throws it on Elphaba, and Elphaba actually melts. And in the original Wizard of Oz book, the Wicked Witch actually melts.
The book is so incredibly different because we have
You're right.
Elphaba living in Fiero's castle with his wife and children. And it is a
Yeah.
very bizarre relationship. Elphaba wants to confess to the wife about the affair. The wife will not hear it, doesn't want to hear anything, doesn't want to know, and will not allow Elphaba to get this off of her chest.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right. I don't understand why Alphabet chose to stay. I can't remember, but I know that it took her a long time to get to this castle in Kiamoko, which is across this crazy desert. And it was a long, very difficult journey. And she's living in this palace in Kiamoko with Fiero's wife and all of her sisters. She has like 6 sisters and her children, which are also Fiero's children, who also try to drown Elphaba's child, who was also Fiero's child. Anyway, it's wild. Before the ending, though, I think all of Fiero's family have been kidnapped by the Gale Force, and they're under the custody of the wizard, if I remember right. I know they're not in the castle. They've all been taken and arrested or something like that. But Elphaba is just running around this castle with Chistery by herself, trying pathetically to ride a broom and not well.
I think all of the sisters and the kids, except for the one daughter, were murdered. And his wife, too, weren't they?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever know definitively what happens to them, but I think Elphaba is running through those scenarios in her mind. She's hoping that they're all still alive, but I think it's hinted at that they are all killed, except for Nor, Fiero's daughter.
I think so, too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's Wicked the book
Who
is
is being
depressing.
held as a slave.
Mm.
It's horrible. I don't care for it.
Did we mention how the book, Wicked, actually mirrors the original Wizard of Oz book in that Elphaba sees Dorothy and friends coming toward her? She's able to see Dorothy with the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion, and so she's trying to stop them. She doesn't want them to get to her. She doesn't want to bother with them. She doesn't want them to take the Grimmery or anything else. She does not want to deal with their nonsense. So she sends the bees and the crows and the wolves after them, just like in the original Wizard of Oz book.
Oh, yes. And so we see how each character has a different way of defending everybody from the bees, that the Tin Man protects them from the bees. And then oh, wait, is that right? Yeah. And then the wolves, that the lion fends them from the wolves. So they all have their own special devices that they are able to use to protect one another. I love it. I liked reading that because it did mirror The Wizard of Oz. So that was good, but
Mm.
that is not in the musical stage or screen at
No.
all.
Right. And in the book, this is also where Elphaba starts trying to piece together who these characters are. And this is where you get to see that Elphaba herself is sort of
Yeah.
crazed. She's losing it as a character mentally. She knows where the Tin Men came from. She knows that her sister, Nessa Rose, was responsible for this man becoming the Tin Man because she enchanted his axe to cut all his limbs off and he became the Tin Man. She knows she knows who the Cowardly Lion is. She recognizes that he was the cub that was brought to her school, who was then rescued by a couple of classmates, and now he's grown
Mhm.
up to become the Cowardly Lion. So because she recognizes the connection between the two of them and that Dorothy is wearing her sister's shoes, she thinks that surely there's a connection with the Scarecrow, and she starts convincing herself that the Scarecrow just might be Fiero and that somehow he was saved and that he is the Fiero and he's not now that he is the Scarecrow and he's not dead. It's clear in the book that he is dead. Fiero does not survive being ambushed by the Gale Squad. The Scarecrow has no connection
Mhm.
to Elphaba as far as we know in the book. His existence is never explained. But Elphaba, from her perspective, starts trying to convince herself that that's him. It's really sad.
Very, very, very sad. But in the musical, we see it's something totally different. So here, Elphaba has been melted. And when Glinda comes out of her little hidey hole, she sees the hat on the ground. She lifts up the hat, and there is the little green vial that was Elphaba's under the hat. And she takes that vial because Elphaba had always held on to that vial because it was her mother's. And
Mhm.
Glinda recognizes that vial.
So this is where Glinda makes a decision as a character to start acting for the good. What does Glinda do after getting the vial?
Glinda goes to the wizard with the vial because
Mm.
she recognized it, confronts the wizard and shows that to him, and he's holding that vial. And the wizard was played brilliantly by Jeff Goldblum. I really liked him a lot. And he's holding it and
Oh,
he
me
said,
too.
"What have I done?" And he knows
Mm.
that Elphaba is his daughter from the affair that he had with her mother. Because we see in a flashback, we saw it a little bit in part one, and we see in a flashback, there he is, and he's giving her this green bottle, potion, and she's drinking that. And so Elphaba is the wizard's daughter. And so Glinda says, "You will leave. You are going to go." And so he does. Gets in his balloon, and you see, "Oh no, Dorothy! Oh, Toto, come back!" And then he leaves. Wait for me! So you see all that just as you kind of glance at.
Mhm. I like that the movie paid homage to Judy Garland through the costuming, but they never showed Dorothy's face. I like that the focus is never on Dorothy and her story, and, we still get to
Mhm.
have the wonderful image of
Mm-mm.
Judy Garland as our Dorothy always.
Isn't that the truth? Because she's hard to replace.
You're right. So yes, the wizard leaves in his balloon, and we don't realize this until Glinda is confronting Madame Morrible. And this was the scene that I think I had the most issues with in the movie. What about you?
Tell me why.
Okay, when Glinda is confronting Madame Morrible, she shows her that the wizard is leaving, and all of a sudden, Madame Morrible is like, "Glinda, I'm so sorry, forgive me. We're gonna be a great team from here on out," whatever. She's very penitent and apologetic, but it's annoying because Glinda's like, "No, I don't forgive you, and you're done too." And the monkeys come in and arrest her and fly her out the window. Madame Morrible. It's really similar to the stage version in that Glinda confronts Madame Morrible very quickly, and she gets arrested, and it's like, "Okay, we're done. That happened. We tied that up with a bow. Good, moving on." In a way, it works on stage better than it does in a movie. In the movie, it's like, I'm sorry, we spent how much time on all these animals leaving through an underground road under the yellow brick road, but we're not going to expand Madame Morrible's storyline any further. That's it. She went through all of this. She dropped a house on a young woman, but she's totally fine to just give up her power because the wizard is flying off in a balloon. This woman can control weather, and this is it. That's it. That's it. I don't know. I was like, "Well, okay, we just glossed right over that."
One of my problems also with this film is you have the incredible Michelle Yeoh, and basically her lines are so minuscule. She says, "Oh, it's the Wicked Witch. She wants to kill us all. After her, we must capture the Wicked Witch. She wants to kill us all. Oh, it's the Wicked Witch. She wants to kill us all." That's about the extent of her
Mm.
lines. It's kind of sad.
Michelle Yeoh is an amazing actress. Like you said the first time we talked about
Mhm.
this, she commands the screen. And you're right, her character went from being
Mhm.
having so much potential to being sort of pathetic, which maybe is fitting if you wanna look at it that way, it's
Yeah.
fitting for the character, but I think overall it just ended up falling flat. The total story arc of her character didn't make a lot of sense. Her motivations are never understood or explored. It's like, well, okay, I guess we just needed to explain what happens to her. Uh, and yeah, it felt rushed and kind of silly. So Glinda has now banished the wizard and Madame Morrible. She is now the only recognized leader of Oz. I don't know what position that puts her in, but people trust her. And Elphaba has made it so that Glinda is still Glinda the Good and she can be trusted. So she takes up that position. She has the Grimmery and she presents herself to the people of Oz as Glinda the Good, and she goes about with them celebrating. And we go back to where we are at the beginning of the first film when we hear No One Mourns the Wicked. She's in Munchkin Land, confirming to the Munchkins that yes, the Wicked Witch of the West is dead. You can all celebrate, but we also get more to the story. We get to go back to the palace where there's the puddle of water on the floor of this castle with the Wicked Witch's hat. And we assume it's Elphaba as the puddle of water. But there's a limping figure that comes into the room that walks very unsteadily. And he bends down to open a trap door under the puddle. And there, when it opens, we see Elphaba, alive and well. And she comes up to look into the face of the Scarecrow, one of Dorothy's 3 companions, who went on a mission to kill the Wicked Witch of the West. And the camera in the movie pans to show us that the Scarecrow is in fact Fiero. And when I first saw the movie, I thought that this was CGI, and I almost rolled my eyes at the fact that he was still like you could tell it was Fiero and he was like hot Scarecrow. But what I've learned since is that all the makeup was practical. It was not CGI makeup. And I've seen other pictures of Jonathan Bailey in this makeup, and the makeup is really impressive. It's so weird. It's like on screen it comes across looking like CGI, but it's actually practical effects. And it looks better in the pictures behind the scenes than it does on screen, in my opinion. But anyway, that's like neither here nor there. Turns out the Scarecrow is Fiero, and that all of Elphaba's attempts at saving his life through her spells worked. He's no longer Fiero as she knew him, but she did save his life. And now he's a Scarecrow. And unlike the Tin Man, he doesn't have anger and bitterness towards her. He thanks her for saving his life.
Going back to the look of him, I like the way he looks better in 1939 movie.
Oh, I do
I
too.
thought
That
that
makeup
makeup
was
job was
amazing.
incredible.
Yes.
This was weird. It was like hash marked. Maybe they were trying to make it look more like burlap. I don't know. I just liked the 39 movie better. Ray Bolger looked fantastic as the Scarecrow. But this was a satisfying ending, knowing that Elphaba and Fiero would be together. And we see them walking across the desert that you mentioned together. And then there's the reprise of For Good that we hear Glinda singing
Mm.
and Elphaba singing. It's almost like Glinda knew that perhaps this wasn't the end, that Elphaba wasn't truly gone, but she didn't know for sure.
I took this as to be the desert that's covered in the book, which takes them to Kiamo Ko. But in the movie, it's like she's at Kiamo
Mhm.
Ko when she's melted.
Mm.
And then I don't know where they're going in the movie. I have no idea where they're headed or what is in store for them. So who knows? But yeah, from far away, they finish their reprise of For Good. And the Grimmery, the pages of the Grimmery start flipping and turning. And we see Glinda look at the Grimmery and she smiles.
Yep.
I don't know how to interpret this except that Elphaba has transferred her power to Glinda or something. I saw one theory that said the Grimmery turned to a spell that showed how to pretend to melt. I didn't get that from the movie, so I don't know. And so the theory is that now Glinda knows what happened, but I don't think that's it. I think ultimately Elphaba somehow transfers her power to Glinda. So Glinda is actually able to use the Grimmery and continue being Glinda the good. But I don't know, what was your interpretation?
I thought that perhaps the Grimoire was able to flip to something that showed how Elphaba and Fiero escaped, and so that she knew, or
Mm,
almost like the Grimoire was able to communicate to Glinda, "They're okay, they're leaving." I don't know. Who
mm,
knows? I guess it's open for interpretation.
mhm. Yeah, I agree.
What do you like better, the book, stage, or film versions?
Hmm. Ultimately, I like the stage version the best. What about you?
Me too, hands down. I like the stage version.
Yeah, it's done well. It's not overly long, and the plot holes can be forgiven because it's all in the spirit of live theater and great music and great performances, which can cover a multitude of sins that film cannot.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree, but I'm glad I saw it. Will I see it again? Probably. I will probably watch it again. I'd like to watch it all back to back where I can watch it a little bit closer together.
I agree. I'd probably watch them back to back because I do Lord of the Rings marathons, no problem. So I could do this back to back. They showed at the end of the movie when they're singing For Good, they showed flashbacks that Glinda and Elphaba have of memories of them, I'm guessing back in their shiz days, where the two of them, you know what I'm talking about. The two of them with Nessa Rose and Fiero and Bach are all running through a field together and hanging out, and they sit down in the grass and they're chatting. We don't get any dialogue, we just have music. What did you think of the very ending shot that we got of the whole film?
You mean where Glinda whispers into Elphaba's ear, just like we see on every t-shirt and program? Could that be it?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. I loved it. I actually gasped.
Yes, I loved that too. I was squealing to my husband, "That's the poster!"
I liked that. I thought that was a great little addition.
Mhm. Yes, I liked it too. So I appreciated that they included our poster image in the very end of the film. Do you have a favorite song from the whole musical?
So I love No Good Deed. There is an emotion in No Good Deed that is so incredible, and when I first heard this music and I bought the CD and I would just play it all the time in the car, that's the song I always wanted to sing, No Good Deed, because I do well emoting that intense emotion. I love that. I enjoyed performing that, and so I loved singing that song. Um, the first act, there're just so many good ones.
Meanwhile, I was
Oh,
a
well, I love
popular
For Good
girly.
too, and that's act 2, but yes, of course you were.
Yeah, I sang popular
You were
all the
younger.
time. I was, yes. When this musical came out, I was much younger. Do you have a favorite Act 1 song?
Favorite. Who
Cool.
doesn't like Defying Gravity?
Mm, Defying Gravity is amazing.
What about you? Do you have favorite
Uh,
songs?
this is gonna be weird. No, sorry. The one I listen to the most from Act 1 is No One Mourns the Wicked. I don't know why, but I do. And then in Act 2, it's No Good Deed
Hmm.
every time. Would you
Yeah.
if you had no age
Mhm.
restrictions or anything, what character would you wanna play?
I would want to play Elphaba. I don't think I have the voice to play Elphaba, but I would want to play Elphaba.
Mm.
What about you?
I don't think I have the voice to play anybody, except for Madame Morrible or someone in the ensemble. But if I could, I would wanna play Glinda.
Oh,
Oh,
wow. Well, okay. Well, me, I like the drama.
yep, I am always singing the Glinda parts.
That's funny.
Um,
Yeah,
did you know that
and
Gregory
I love
Maguire
Elphaba.
do you know how he came up with the name Elphaba?
Yes, I do. But you can share
You
it
do?
for our listeners.
For our listeners, Gregory
Yes.
Maguire in his book Wicked named the Wicked Witch of the West Elphaba because of L. Frank Baum, the original author of The Wizard of Oz. He named her after his initials. LFB, Elphaba.
Yep, I knew that little bit of trivia.
And officially, I think that is everything that I had in my notes, except for the fact that they used the original Wizard of Oz font from the 1939 movie to make the title Wicked in both Wicked Part 1 and Part 2.
When we were watching it in a theater, I said to Michael, I said, that is the original font.
You can tell. If you're a fan of the original movie, you can tell just watching it.
Yeah, I
Before
loved
we
it.
go, can I tell a funny story about the song
Mhm.
For Good?
Sure.
This is such a theater kid story. So I went to drama camp when I was, what, 11? I was the youngest one there. I know that. So I think I was 11. This was in Montana, and I was there for 2 weeks, and I had a blast. I loved it so much. All we did every day was do vocal warm-ups, physical warm-ups, like, for dance, and we sang, act, and danced all day long every day for 2 weeks. It was amazing. Loved it. Drama camp was the best. We would put on a show for a couple of days for parents and locals who wanted to come see a whole bunch of preteens and teenagers put on basically a musical medley.
A review.
Yeah, a review. And at the very end of the show, we had a little finale number where we encircled the audience and we held hands and we sang For Good from Wicked. It had been around a while, but it was still fairly new. And there are very, very embarrassing pictures of me bawling my eyes out while we sang For Good. And to be fair to myself, I was not the only one this emotional. There is something about the theater kid in general that takes everything very seriously and gets overly attached to other theater kids when it comes to certain productions, that when you're saying goodbye to a production and you're gonna be going your separate ways, it feels like a real loss. So, I had only spent 2 weeks with these people, but boy, here I am bawling in a theater full of other kids that are similarly bawling their eyes out while we're singing For Good from Wicked. And the pictures that you and dad took of me crying so hard, I think it's hilarious. And it reminds me of the real gravity that theater kids carry with them wherever we go.
That's so funny. Well, that was so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us, watching Wicked, watching The Wizard of Oz, watching The Wiz. It has been such an enjoyable time in the land of Oz, and we hope that you have enjoyed it too. And we hope that you will come back.
Yes, it's been wonderful walking through the land of Oz with all of you. Thank you.
Join us next time as we
Watch books.